Hello again. Hello, you wonderful, amazing people. Welcome to the only show that asks you to pull out your chairs, get your tabletop role-playing game books out, and join us at the table. I'm having a weird day. Today we're going to be talking about something just in time for the holiday season around the corner. The thing that everyone wants, everyone needs, and right now level 2 characters don't have yet, and that's magic items. But before we go into full detail on this, let's shoot it off to my man, Mr. Michael Powell. Tell them who you are and where we can find you on that sweet, sweet internet.
Hey everybody, I'm Michael Kapow, and you can find me all over the internet on my social media handle, which is Mr. Kapow. That's MrKapao. And how about you, PJ?
Well, like you said, my name is PJ, a.k.a. PJ McGaw. You can find me everywhere on the internet at pj.mcgaw. And I guess without further ado, let's kick this rocking chair off the front porch. That is a metaphor no one says. I don't know what's wrong with me today.
No.
I have...
It's a weird day. It's a weird day.
You need to see this. I have 2 cups of coffee. I have drank most of one, and I'm still talking like a dummy.
Mm-hmm.
So
a little peek behind the curtain. Both PJ and I, we haven't had any real sleep the other night, so not together, but just
yeah, not together. We don't. I mean, when we do, I'm a little spoon. But last night we did not get good sleep. And also, take a quick second, Reap Psyche. I saw that awesome Tier 1 subscription. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate all the awesome help and loving all the stuff in the chat. Sydney is currently chilling in a hotel, it appears. Reap Psyche saying, "Good Lord, PJ, double fist in that caffeine from Malice." Also, hi, Reaped. All right. Glad to know you also enjoy Little Spoon. Look, I may be a thick boy with, muscles, but I have feelings, too. And, I like being the big, strong guy, But sometimes I also like to have, my head pet. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I have a pretty warm center.
Yeah, I'm a very warm, cozy, cuddly dude. Everyone's always like, muscles, hard like rocks. I'm like, clearly you've never actually hugged a buff boy. But that's not the point. The point is magic items.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Magic items and magic weapons and runes today.
That's right. Today we're going to be talking about, besides the finer points of cuddling and giving hugs, we're going to mostly and entirely be discussing magic items, runes, and all that good stuff. Soft boy PJ. Yeah, and that's the truth. So, so moving forward, wow, it's not even been 5 minutes, Michael Powell, and I've already derailed this chat.
We were talking about derailing the show at some point, and this is not what we discussed.
Yeah, and I just, like the bully boots, I just kicked that baby out the window right away.
Stop saying that!
Sorry. That's how silly I am. This is what happens when PJ has 2 cups of coffee and no sleep. Hey, Adam Generator. Awesome to see you in the chat. So sorry this is where you entered the stream on. Okay. Focus. We are going to focus. Mr. Michael Powell, you want to talk a bit about identifying magical items.
Yeah.
Before we start talking about magical items, why don't we go ahead and kick it off with that?
I actually thought that we should have talked about it last episode, but neither one of us thought about it, so we're going to talk about it this episode.
It seemed like a tertiary thing, but also it is kind of important, so let us discuss.
So, how do you know that shiny new sword you found in the dungeon is actually a magic item, or is it just a shiny new sword? Well, one of the things you should probably end up doing is use your Identify Magic skill, which is built into, I believe, it's its own skill, really, which, thankfully, it's not a spell anymore, because I know PJ has a lot of feelings about that.
Yeah, something you're going to learn about me if you haven't been graced with this information already. I'm a very passionate man. Very strong feelings, very strong passions. I don't just have a simple emotion or expression. I think a lot of the detect magic spell slots, not cantrips, are BS. And I will stop right there to let Michael Powell say some more stuff. Otherwise, I will just go.
Yeah. Well, the Cliff Notes version is it's going to be a skills versus a DC based on the target item's level and rarity. Now, what does that all mean? Well, see here, because I did notes. I made notes, and
Mhm.
I can't read my own handwriting. I just realized.
So, okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to deal with the lovely, hilarious passive aggressiveness of our fellow chat. GPJ, we had no idea. Yeah, that was a big mystery. I know. I'm mysterious
Okay, got
sometimes.
it. Well, the step one is to discover a if an item is magical or not. There's actually many ways, but the two most common ways is seeing actually the item in action. So if that wizard over there is waving around a wand and fireballs are flying out of it, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's magical, right?
Yeah, I also like that there's a magical weapon that our barbarian in the party has. And I said, oh, yeah, there's a special rune on it, and you don't know what it does yet. And no one's checked into it yet. So
Mm-hmm.
eventually, that's going to be a fun surprise unless they
Yep.
figure it out.
And the second most common way to identify a magic item is either using the read aura or detect magic spell. This spell will not tell you what it actually does, but it will confirm whether it's magical or not.
Yeah, so I'm going to try to make this rant as small as possible. In another system, they decided that detect magic should be a spell slot. When at this point, when this spell has come out, let's just say 10 years, detect magic has been a cantrip. And for good reason. It's there to give you a small amount of information about a thing, as opposed to blowing an entire spell slot for the exact same amount of information, which there may not even be that
Yeah.
information. So that's a complete waste of a spell slot. So detect magic tells you that thing is magical, and eventually, depending on the edition, either you get it right away or you have to wait a few rounds. It will tell you what schools of magic,
Mm-hmm.
what level of magic, and then as a GM, there's just a really fun rule where if the spell or the thing you are detecting is a certain amount of levels higher than you will get a penalty because it's too much. It's too much to look at.
Well, anyway, to identify magic, it's a 10-minute activity, or it could actually be reduced down to 1 minute with the quick identification feat. And like I said, it also depends on the skill train if the item is arcane, divine, occult, or nature. So yeah, if you have some points in arcane, you could you could detect whether it's an arcane item or it's a religious item or a druidic item. See,
Yeah. Oh, no,
oh,
continue,
sorry.
Michael.
The GM needs to determine the DC for this check, which is based on the item's level and then modified by its rarity, which you could do by referring to page 503 of the core rulebook on table 10.5.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, say the item level is 2, and then which means it's a DC of 16, and if it's a uncommon item, there's a adjustment of +2, which makes it a DC of 18 to figure out the nitty gritty of that item.
Yeah, and Mouse makes a very good point. In older Pathfinder and other editions, detect magic would basically, like I said, if you held it longer, then you'd get more information,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you hold it for multiple rounds. That's the old way. In this current iteration, and I should mention this so I'm not confusing with too much information, detect magic lets you know if a thing is magical.
Mm-hmm.
Read aura, as someone else in the chat has put besides Malice, read aura also allows you to figure out what type of magic it is. School of magic or source, I believe. But also, I think the most efficient way that Michael Powell put it is you can also just make a check.
Yeah,
Roll a d20.
yeah.
Maynard asked, the big question I have is, what's to stop a player from just taking a 10 or 20, whichever is possible with the class, and solidly knowing whatever they want about a thing after enough time has passed? Well, that's a very good question. One of the things to keep in mind is that if you are not trained in a skill, then certain actions with that skill are not plausible,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, like, let's say the item is divine and you have no training in religion whatsoever. then yeah, you probably could still take a 10, but you'd be limited on what you could know because you
Yeah.
honestly don't know anything about religion.
Mhm.
And that's fine.
Yeah. And as well as after you determine the level and rarity DC, then that next is up to the GM themselves to decide whatever else they want to tack on.
hmm Adam Generators also offer this food for thought, mana for the win. There's no written rule on taking a 10 or 20 in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I think they got rid of that after Pathfinder 1, 3.5, because I think, yeah, it kind of ruined some of the GM surprise. You
Yeah.
know, like, here's this magical item. You don't know what it does. I take a 10. What does it do? You know, and it does. I think the other game still has a 10-minute rule, but they try to kind of walk away from that as much as possible. Yeah, so really, at the end of the day, the goal is to figure out what this item is.
Yeah.
And the rules in place are only there to make that journey of knowledge fun or potentially catastrophic,
Mhm.
which is also fun.
And one last thing before we move on to something else, cursed items. Oh, I love my curse
Ooh,
as a GM. I love curse items.
they fun.
Uh, that's always a let's see what is it a incredibly hard adjustment modifier, which means yeah, curse items are usually pretty rare and they were created to not be detected as a curse item, so it's going to be a hard or a high DC. So I think incredibly hard DC is for that is a +10.
Yeah, and curse items are fun because they give nice drama. I also love intelligent weapons. I love the idea of weapons that they have such a personality that's either for or against what your
Mhm.
character is about, and it just creates this other level of role play. Cursed items and intelligent items are really there
Mhm.
to use the magical weapon vehicle to create more role play. So if
Yeah.
you feel like you want something more out of your opportunities to role play, talk to people, these are great devices.
I do
That
want to point out
yeah.
that intelligent items, more information about that could be found in the Game Mastery Guide.
Yes. All this information can be found in the Game Mastery Guide and, to a lesser extent, the Core Rulebook.
Mhm.
So, without further ado, we going to talk about runes. Now,
Yep.
I want to take a quick minute to kind of go into the rune system because this is a really cool system. So, in Pathfinder First Edition, some of you may or may not know, you had a item limit of level 10, which means that you could have a +5 modifier on the right and a +5 modifier on the left. Effectively speaking, certain bonuses had an item level between 1 to 5, and you could stack those up accordingly, so long as the total value of the item did not exceed 10. This was a great way for players to create their own gear, to customize their own magical weapons based on their needs. And it was a massively fun thing. And the biggest disappointment I had in the other system, let's say it's their fifth attempt, they completely removed
No
this.
chill.
No, hey, you know what? Come at me, bro. The tea is hot. Like, they completely removed this. And this sucked because this took away, I'd say, 90% of the reason players get gold. You know, maybe 80% of the reason players get gold was to customize their own weapons, armor, shields, magical stuff, right? And they were like, no, the weapon is what it is. It does a firebrand. It does plus 3d6 fire, and that's it. It will not get better. And I'm like, boring. So in Pathfinder Second Edition, they've changed the system up a little bit, and they've done so in a way I think is actually a bit more flexible, enjoyable, and a little, and I say a little less broken than what it could be in the previous Pathfinder edition. So right away, you have these things called runes. You have property runes and you have more specialized runes. The property runes is what gives your whatever it is the base magic needed to be a powerful item, right? So you get a +1 property rune. The +1 property rune basically means this is now a +1 weapon. It'll hit with a +1, but it also makes it magical and able to put more runes on. You are limited to the number of basically the number of runes, the level of runes equal to the bonus. Now, it only goes up to a +3. However, that +3 can do a lot on the back end. For example, a weapon. Another property rune, and this is a basic rune that may not come with the weapon, but will be an essential part of the weapon that does not interfere with the maximum level of it. So yeah, +1, right? Let's skip ahead. +3 greatsword, right? +3 greatsword, striking rune. Again, that all goes to the basic stuff. You get the major striking rune without adding anything else, like a flaming quality or whatever that we'll get to in a little bit. That weapon is now +3 to hit, and then 3 extra damage dice, which is bonkers. That's like what? 1 more than a crit? Oh, but it gets better. Those 3 and that 1 base, yeah, that still doubles when you roll a crit. Last I checked. I might be reading that rule incorrectly. But that means on a crit, that weapon is doing 8 times the dice. So
Not bad.
it's not bad. Now, granted, the item level for that rune alone, the property rune, it's like a 17, 19, which means, and this is what's great, these things have item levels. This is a huge cue to you, the player, and the GM. Hey, this is really good. Don't give this to them until they're about that level. And that's really great because a lot of times in other editions, they didn't have that. So you have people getting stupid powerful weapons that the only people who knew they were crazy powerful were the players. So, well, were the veteran players. So, we're going to move into the runes and discuss the runes for weapons, what they do, but I wanted to explain the system. And what's cool about these runes is that you can customize as you go. You picked up, you have this +1 greatsword, and you find a +1 greatsword of flaming, or a +1 battle axe of flaming, and you're like, you know what? I don't like axes. They're not my character shtick. They're not my brand. They're not my weapon group. You can get that flaming rune out of that axe and put it into your sword. And what's cool is that you can do this with skill checks, so you can really specialize in the creation and customization of magical items yourself. Mm-hmm. Or if you happen to have a GM who's thought 3 steps ahead, you can go to whatever the local runesmith is and get it done probably for the cost of labor.
Yeah.
So now we're getting back to the idea of
really
customized
quick,
magical
I also
equipment.
want to point out that to transfer said rune, that's also part of the craft activity.
Yeah, using a crafting check. Like I said, this requires a skill check to do. Although I do believe it takes about somewhere between 10 minutes and an hour to do. Either way, I think we laid down the groundworks. The whole thing is a customizable gold mine. You have your property runes, your basic runes that you'll need to create the base of the weapon. And now the runes we're going to talk about, which are the special runes that can be used to enhance the weapon further. Now, again, these runes have item levels, so you know what you're getting yourself into.
I do have a question, because as you said, we got some magical items with us now. Will we be seeing the rune transferring, crafting, etching, all that be done on Edge of Legend?
Absolutely. Now, right now, as it stands, I don't believe a player has that skill focus. It's not impossible to pick it up. But I have put NPCs in the world that have already specialized. Well, you haven't run into them yet, but they do specialize in crafting, transfixing, basically etching, moving runes around. And now that you guys do have a few runic weapons, you know, the hand wraps of Heavenly Peace, plus the weapon that Pacific Dorita got. Yeah, Ichi got. And on the show tomorrow, hopefully we'll make checks and figure out what the heck this weapon is. I already know what it is, but I want to make sure, you know, the Sam kind of figures it out.
Yeah.
Rune Forgers. Yes, Rune Forgers, Runesmith. Well, I guess Runesmith might be copyright. Either way. So without further ado, let's talk about the runes in your weapons. So I'm going to be using 2 books here, both the core rule book and the advanced player's guide. There's a lot of books out there. There's only so many magic runes in my knowledge.
All heavy. This is why,
all heavy.
Yeah, this is why you go to the gym.
I lift weights, not to get big and swole, but to carry my books. So, crafting treasures and items. Let's get to the runes.
Do you want to discuss real quick about the 4 fundamental runes?
Yes, I went on that a little bit in in a small detail. But to go into bigger detail, you have the 4. 2 are for weapons and 2 are for armor.
Mm-hmm.
One gives you a +1 to hit with that weapon. The other one gives you a bonus damage die. And again, the damage die stacks depending. It's lesser, greater, and major. And then you have those words roughly. And then you have armor. Again, you get a +1 to that armor. And then you get the resilience, which allows you to get bonuses to saves and things like that. So those are the 4 basic property runes split up amongst the 2 things. And once you have those runes placed in your armor or your weapon, then you can just open up the floodgates with all the really cool, like runic creativity you can do. Page 580, thank you, Malice. You see me struggle. I appreciate it. It's actually funny, when you said that, I was on page 573. All right, so runes. Oh, and I should say that we covered investitures last episode. This is still the same with this case with runic weapons and armor. If the weapon requires it, it will mention it in the build out, and then you spend an hour. And again, you can have up to 10 invested items. So go ahead and make that investiture with your holy sword of butt kicking. All right, so first things first on the weapons. Well, you lied to me, Malice. It starts in 580, but the weapons don't start until 583. So now I'm going to read you the rune level to let you know the level of the weapon you're on and all that kind of stuff. So you know, like, oh, hey, maybe this is not a level 3 weapon. This is a bigger weapon than I thought. Anarchic. Anarchic. Yeah, anarchy. This is 11th level rune. Of course, you can put it into a weapon that isn't axiomatic. An anarchic rune is jagged and asymmetrical. Reading is hard today. Channeling chaotic energy. A weapon with this rune deals an additional 1d6 chaotic damage against lawful targets. If you are lawful, you are enfeebled 2 while carrying or wielding this weapon. When you critically succeed a strike with this weapon against a lawful creature, roll a d6. On a 1 or 2, you deal double minimum damage. On a 3 or 4, you deal double normal damage. On a 5 to 6, you deal double maximum damage. So there's 2 things I want to say about this. One, sorry, I just saw a mate in the chat. Oh no, Malice, you've turned him into a 1920s noir detective. Happens all the time. One, a lot of the properties you're going to see in the runes are aligned. They are alignment damage. Good, evil, chaotic, order. And they're all going to have this effect wherein if someone of the opposite alignment tries to pick up this weapon, there's going to be penalties and repercussions for that. It's kind of a cool safety thing. Also, they're really good at dealing damage to the opposite alignment, which I feel is really, really cool for very specific campaigns. However, it could be problematic in more broad sweeping epics. Like, for example, the anarchic weapon allows you to deal chaotic damage to lawful characters. If you're fighting something that's chaotic or neutral, it doesn't do any bonus damage. But if you're, let's say you're a bunch of evil players, you're playing an evil campaign, and you're fighting a bunch of paladins, that's going to wreck house. That will definitively wreck some house. And speaking of the opposite alignments, Mr. Merpal, how about you knock out axiomatic for me real fast?
What page is that on? I'm still looking for it.
It's quite all right. It's on page 583 of your core
83. Okay,
rulebook.
I was on a completely different.
Can't talk.
83. Axiomatic. Yes. Complex and symmetrical, an axiomatic rune imbibes a weapon with lawful energy. A weapon with this rune deals additional 1d6 lawful damage against chaotic targets. If you are chaotic, you are enfeebled 2 while carrying or wielding this weapon. When you critically succeed on an attack roll with this weapon against a chaotic creature, instead of rolling, count each weapon die as a average damage rounded up. 3 for D4, 4 for D6, 5 for D8, 6 for D10, and 7 for D12. And to craft requirements are you have to be lawful.
Yeah, because if you're not lawful, why are you making this lawful rune? I also do kind of want to say, what I love is they're going kind of above and beyond the old runes. Like, yeah, doing chaotic damage was something that happened in Pathfinder First Edition, but now you're getting a little extra something special from that chaos. Like you saw, the D6, you get different double damage depending on how we roll. With the axiomatic, you're getting averages. So if you're like, oh man, I'm going to roll really poorly, this will allow you to have some solid safety nets. Because again, law. All right. Next one, Rune 8+. Now, what this means is that usually if there's a plus next to it, it can get better value the higher version of this you run into. Now, this is called Corrosive, Rune 8+. Acid sizzles across the surface of the weapon. When you hit with the weapon, you add 1d6 acid damage to the damage dealt. In addition, on a critical hit, the target's armor, if any, takes 3d6 acid damage before applying hardness. If the target has a shield raised, the shield takes the damage instead. So that's really good if you want to break people's armor. If you're fighting a big tanky boy with lots of plate and a shield, this will help break that down faster. It comes in two types, corrosive, as we explained, and now the 8+, or in this case, level 15, greater corrosive. The acid damage dealt by this weapon ignores a target's acid resistance. That's really cherry. Increase the acid damage dealt to the armor or a shield on a critical hit to 6d6. So if that guy's got, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like the level of a mundane armor, like a mundane steel armor or whatever. On a crit, there's a very good chance you're just going to outright wreck their armor, depending what their hardness and their HP and BT is for that item. BT, by the way, being broken threshold. Once this HP equals that limit, it's broken, and then it can go beyond, completely zero out their HP value for that item, and then the item's destroyed. Anyway, Malice says, sorry, I was looking at the basic rune striking potency. So good, Malice. Hey, we got in the ballpark, and that's what matters. So why don't you cover? Oh, this is perfect for you,
Yeah.
Michael.
I want Rufa to have a dancing weapon.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if I want his chain to be actually dancing or have a partner dancing weapon.
I'll tell you what. Let's get you at least a level 10. Because
Yeah.
this is a rune level 13, and I'm sure it's rune level 13 for a very good reason.
All right. Well, it's a rune level 13, and it has to be etched onto a melee weapon. A dancing weapon flies autonomously, and strikes at your foe. Activate is a 2-action command and interact effect. You release the weapon and it dances through the air, fighting on its own against the last enemy you attacked, or the nearest enemy to it. If your target has been defeated, at the end of your turn each round, the weapon can fly up to a speed of 40 feet and then either fly again or strike one creature within its reach. The weapon has a space of 5 feet, but doesn't block or impede enemies attempting to move through their space, nor does it benefit from or provide flanking. The weapon can't move through an enemy space. The weapon can't use reactions, and the fly actions don't trigger reactions. While it's activated, a dancing weapon makes strikes with an attack modifier of plus 24 when its item bonus plus its item bonus to attack rolls. Yeah, I want one of these.
Mm-hmm.
It uses the weapon's normal damage, but has a plus 0 strength modifier. The weapon's abilities that automatically trigger on a hit or critical hit still function, but the weapon can't be activated or benefit from any of your abilities while dancing. Each round, when the weapon is finished, using its actions, attempt a DC 6 flat check. On a failure, the activation ends and the weapon falls to the ground. You can't activate the weapon again for 10 minutes.
Yeah. Now, this is something important to note. This is a level 13 rune. And the plus 24 plus the item level. So again, if you have a plus 3 dancing weapon, that's a plus 27 to hit.
Yeah.
That's factoring into account being level 13. If I gave a dancing, and this is just me trying to make this point hit home. If I give a plus 1 dancing weapon to Rufa right now at level 2, it's going to be sick nasty, yo. Stupid sick nasty.
Yeah, it's going to be my best friend.
It would be, the entire game would be sit back and let your whip do all the
Yeah,
all the
I'll be
work.
like, I call him Rufa Jr.
More like, no. At that point, he's Rufus Senior. Your living wit that's like literally 11 levels stronger than you, that's your daddy.
Yeah.
What's the expected hit bonus of a level 13 frontline fighter? Good question. So, let's see here. Let's just take a fighter bare bones with a 20 strength, right? I think at 13 at that point they're at least a master in their weapons, if not a legend. So that would be 13 plus 6 would be 19. 19 plus 5 would be 24 for a bonus to hit, and that's not including any magical items. I believe my
PJ,
math is correct on
I
that.
just got an idea. Rufa
What's that?
either has a dancing kitchen cleaver or a dancing frying pan.
I kind of want to make like a flying dancing dagger, so there's things just
Yeah.
moving around them, like
Oh yeah,
cutting them up.
that would be so awesome. Yeah, I think that would make
So,
most sense for Rufa if he ever has any kind of dancing weapon. It would probably be like a dancing dagger, like a really nice dagger. You know, nice hilt, maybe a little ruby at the end or something.
hmm yeah, and what I love is that this is a free attack action.
Yeah,
Once you spend 2 actions to activate this rune, it's basically a free damage,
yeah. It's like
which is
flipping on the
amazing.
on switch.
Ah, Adam Generator, thank you for the correction, Adam Generator. Fighters are not masters, they are legendaries in one weapon group. Okay, so assuming then that this is a weapon they are that's in their weapon group and not a general across the board, then it'd be a little more sexy because that's 13 as a level plus 8 for legendary is 21 plus, so it'd be a 26 with one of their trained weapon groups. Probably more like 24 with non-weapon group, but still.
I like Malice's idea. Flying dancing bladed scarf. And yes, Reap Psyche, dancing cleaver does sound terrifying.
Yeah, Malice and Reaped. I think all that sounds really cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to see any of those for Rufa. All right, now this next one, I think, if not this, then another rune would be very good for a certain cleric with her hand wraps. Disrupting. Rune, 5th level plus, so there's different levels of this eventually. A disrupting weapon pulses with positive energy, dealing an extra 1d6 positive damage to undead. On a critical hit, the undead are also enfeebled 1 until the end of your next turn. So at 5th level, you basically hit like you are always casting Disrupt Undead cantrip, but now it's built into your melee strike. Of course, it sucks. It doesn't do any damage to a living person, but against an undead, that stacks up fast. And then at level 14, you get the Greater Disrupting Rune. Increases the extra damage to 2d6. On a critical hit, instead of being enfeebled 1, the undead creature must attempt a DC 34 Fortitude save with one of these effects. If they critically succeed, they're just enfeebled 1 to the end of your next turn. So even if they crit, they still have a status effect. Success, they're enfeebled 2 until the end of your next round. Failure, enfeebled 3 until the end of your next round. If they critically fail, the DC 34 Fortitude save, they straight up die. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. The next
you.
one, I guess, will be my turn, will be flaming, which we kind of already talked about a little bit, but let's go more in depth with it. The weapon is empowered by flickering flame. The weapon deals an additional 1d6 fire damage on a successful strike, plus 1d10 persistent fire damage on a critical hit. I do love my persistent damage.
Oh, free damage. I love it.
Let's see. You can also make it a greater flaming weapon by increasing the persistent damage on a critical hit to 2d10 fire damage dealt by this weapon, including the persistent fire damage, which ignores the target's fire resistance.
See, that's really good because one of the biggest pains in the butt late game is finding creatures, demons, monsters, gods, whatever, that are resistant, if not straight up immune to damage. And it's a pain in the ass because so much of this time has been spent cultivating this powerful group of magic, weapons, etc. And then half of them don't work, or they work at like half strength. And it's very frustrating. Adam Generator, I think it's an incapacitation effect. Looking at the book on page 584, disrupting critical failure does say it is destroyed. Not incapacitated, completely destroyed. But then again, that's only the level 14 variant of the rule. This is not out the gate at level 5, because that would be insane.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we got
Right.
Frost.
Right. Read the fire one, but add ice damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. But here's one difference. On a critical hit, the target is now slowed 1 until the end of your next turn and has to succeed a DC 24 Fortitude save. The Greater Frost, the DC is it goes from a 24 to a 34, and the cold damage dealt by the weapon ignores all cold resistance. Which I kind of like. I like that it really blends into the idea of the ice forming over your body and slowing you down. That's really cool. So why don't you take away Mr. Michael Powell, take Ghost Touch.
All right. Ghost Touch is a level 4 rune. It's actually a pretty cheap rune. It's only 75 gold. Etched on a melee weapon, the weapon can harm creatures without physical form. A Ghost Touch weapon is particularly effective against incorporeal creatures, which always have a specific weakness to Ghost Touch weapons. Incorporeal creatures can touch, hold, and wield Ghost Touch weapons, unlike most physical objects. Ah.
Nice. So basically, is it hard to kill a ghost? Absolutely. Now you got Ghost Touch. Now you can basically
Now you're a
grapple
Ghostbuster.
ghost. You're a Ghostbuster, yeah. Also, Adam Generator said, so if the undead level is higher than the item, the degree of the save is 1 better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's good to know. It's a little weird, though, with the way it's written, because it looks like there is no wiggle room. It's just destroyed. But again, even if they critically fail, and they're just too powerful of an undead to disrupt, that would make sense. It would be kind of lame if it's like, here's my Lich, and you're like, well, here's my Disruption rune. You know, like, that would suck, because here's your big bad, just dead because of a botched roll. Let's see here. Oh, and they continue. An ability with this trait can take a character completely out of the fight, or even kill them. Adam Generator, which one are you speaking of? Let's see. See, it says this is an incapacitation effect. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying. Thank you for the correction. Read you loud and clear. My bad. Yes, so this is an incapacitation effect for the following effects. However, if it is destroyed, I believe that still destroys the body of the undead. It's kind of a weird thing. Core rulebook, page 633, that's the incapacitation trait. Got it. Thank you very much. So, for more on this, go to page 633 and look up that effect. Me as well. Let's see here. You did
Grievous.
Ghost Touch my... Yes. Do you want me to do Grievous, or do you want to do Grievous?
I already did Ghost Touch, so Grievous is all yours.
Okay. This is a 9th level rune. When your attack roll with this weapon is a critical hit and gains the critical specialization effect, you gain an additional benefit depending on the weapon group. So basically, 1 year for every weapon. I'll try to go through this quickly. Axe group. You can damage a third creature with the same restrictions. Bow. Athletics check to pull the missile free is a DC 20 flat check. Brawling. Not a flat check, athletics check. Brawling. The target takes a -4 circumstance penalty to its save. Club. You can knock the target up to 15 feet away. Dart. The base persistent bleed damage is then increased to 2d6. Nice. You move the target 5 feet. You can't move it away from you, but you can move it to another direction of your choice. Hammer. You can also knock the target back 5 feet away from you. Knife. The target takes a -5 foot status penalty to its speed while it has the persistent bleed damage. That sucks for them. Pick. The extra damage from the critical specialization effect increases to 4 per weapon damage die. Holy balls, that's madness. Anyway, polearm. You can move the target up to 10 feet away. Shield. You can knock them back 10 feet away. Sling. The target takes a -10 foot status penalty to its speed for 1 round if it fails the save. Spear. The enfeebled condition lasts for 2 rounds. Sword. The target is flat-footed until the end of your next turn. So these are the additional effects that you get on top of the critical effects or the critical specializations of your weapon.
Yeah,
this is tremendous. Yeah, a little extra spice. This is great for fighters who get these quickly and can stack up a lot of really fun benefits.
I really like the knife the knife one, because I'm always a sucker for
Oh yeah.
persistent damage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And oh god, considering that you can get a murder knot put onto a rogue's knife, and then
Hmm.
I mean, I would
Or
imagine it stacks so long it doesn't get too
yeah,
broken.
imagine a Grievous dancing knife.
Good lord. Actually, that would be great crowd control too, because
Yeah,
they would move 5 feet less.
yeah.
I like that.
All right. Next up is Holy. I believe a certain cloistered cleric could probably make use of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 11th level rune. It costs 1,400 gold pieces, so it's going to be a while till you could get it, Sydney. And usage is etched on a weapon without a unholy type. Holy weapons command powerful celestial energy. A weapon with this rune deals an extra 1d6 good damage against evil targets. If you are evil, you are enfeebled too while carrying or wielding this weapon. It's a activate reaction command, I believe, and once per day, the trigger is you critically succeed on a attack roll against the evil creature with the weapon, and the effect is you regain HP equal to double the evil creature's level. This is a good positive healing effect.
Mm-hmm. So this is great for every good character.
Yeah,
It's so good because you're doing an extra 1d6 good damage. A lot of things you're going to be fighting are evil, maybe not always, but a lot of them are. So it does have a chance of actually being used a lot in most campaigns. And then just the fact that you get to heal yourself as part of reaction. Sure, you may not get to do an attack of opportunity, but if your class never learns that reaction, and you don't really have any other reactions that are like really important right now, if you're fighting a level 15 character, getting 30 HP back for free is really good and
yeah,
saves the cleric a lot of time. Um, Keen, everyone's favorite rune for weapons, at least in first edition, where it basically doubled your critical threat range. And if you had a rapier or a scimitar, a keen version of that would basically mean that you'd crit on a 15 up,
yeah,
which is bonkers. So Keen, a 13th level rune. The edges of a keen weapon are preternaturally sharp. Attacks with this weapon crit on a 19 as long as the result is a success. This property has no effect on a 19 if the result would be a failure. Um, pro tip. If you are a GM, never give your people something to fight that they could not hit if they rolled a 19. That's bad gameship, I believe. If you're like, this guy has 50 AC, I have a plus 10 to hit. Yeah, you're never going to hit him. Like, narrative maybe, but that's not fun for anyone to be put in a
yeah,
situation where they're destined to fail.
yeah. All right, the next one is another kind of favorite property of mine. Is called Returning. It's a level 3 rune. Once again, it's a pretty cheap costing rune at 55 gold pieces. Let's see, it could be etched on a thrown weapon. When you make a thrown strike with this weapon, it flies back to your hand after the strike is complete. If your hands are full when the weapon returns, it falls to the ground in your space. I just like enchanting that on a hatchet or a dagger or something. And just like throw, back, throw, back.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad. They used to have this for like, oh gosh, what was it? There was a combo you could do. So you could get the throwing magical property so that a weapon that would be impossible to throw could suddenly be thrown up to like 15 feet, I think. And then you could have the returning property put on that. So you could make Thor's hammer. And a lot of people had fun doing that, like throwing it and having it come back because that
Yeah.
giant warhammer can't
Oh
be
man,
thrown.
imagine if Itchy has this on her Warhammer.
I thought about that. I really wanted to give it to her warhammer, but I realized until I find the throwing rune, and I have not seen that in the two
At
books
that point,
mentioned
she could
yet.
just throw the hammer, jump on it, and just like fly around like a surfboard.
That's like that villain from Dragon Ball, like old school Dragon Ball, General Tao Pai Pai.
Yeah,
I think that's his name. And he would just like leg kick a tree, pick up the tree, and then throw it, and then jump on it, and then ride the tree. And I'm watching this going, What? Why? Why any of this? Anyway,
Aesthetic.
aesthetic. Yeah, he was like, look, I know I'm going to show up late and about 30 feet to the right, but I'm going to make an impression.
Mm-hmm.
Also, yeah, wanted to clarify. Mal said 19 of the die. Yes. Apologies if that didn't sound what it sounded like when I mentioned Keen. 19 die face. And again, I go back to my pro tip. If you're fighting something that a 19 die face wouldn't hit, not good gamesmanship. And Maynard said sometimes you're just not supposed to be fighting something. Sure. Still, though, make that clear through narrative and not through mechanics, because it can be kind of frustrating when it's like, mathematically speaking, this sucks. But anyway, so returning, now we go to shifting. This is a rune level 6. With one action to interact, you can change the shape of the weapon to another melee weapon that requires the same number of hands to wield. The weapon's runes and any precious material it's made out of apply the weapon's new shape. Any property runes that can't apply to the new form are suppressed until the item takes a shape to which they can apply. This is a great way. If you are a two-handed weapon wielder, you can make this thing anywhere from a spear, hammer, greatsword, axe, whatever.
Yeah.
Versatile, very, very versatile.
I actually really like this. My only complaint about this rune is I don't think it should be that high of a level and cost that much.
I do agree with you. Because I was looking over this a lot, trying to figure out why is shifting a level 6 rune if it limits you to what your hands are.
Well, one of the things I would love to do, because, well, one of them is it reminds me of a weapon from a character from this anime called Flame of Rekka that I really enjoy. The character has a weapon that basically shifts through 13 different forms, kind of like a little puzzle box. I would honestly love to see Rufa's trademark whip.
Mm-hmm.
He taps it on the ground, kind of like, Dr. Donald Blake from Thor, and becomes Thor. He taps it on the ground, it becomes a walking stick.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to flavor that just as a thing. But I think,
AKA
I
a
just
club.
don't know why
That's what a walking stick would be, a club.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and for that, so for that I could see why a rune of level 6 might be important, because if you're using a two-handed weapon, it's a little redundant. Everything in your range is going to be between like a D10, a D12, and if you're already using a greatsword, great axe, or a maul, the D12s, that's already the cap.
But what
if
it's like a light club, which is one-handed?
Exactly. The one-handed, I think, is where the issue comes into play, because the one-handed has such a different range, anywhere from a D4 to a D8 or a D10.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's a level 6 rune, because, like, let's say you're a rogue or you're a fighter or whatever, and you only have one-handed weapons. Now you can kind of shift it into more exotic weapons. The one thing I would like to get clarification on is proficiency. It doesn't say that. So, like, let's say you are playing a class or an ancestry with very specific list of weapon proficiencies, and you change it into an exotic weapon that's one-handed. And you want to have the exotic weapon proficiency feat. Do you get your full proficiency, or are you going with penalties? It magically changed in your hand.
Yeah. As a GM, I would say you would need to be proficient in that weapon already, but another reason why I like shifting weapon is there are some creatures who are immune to certain types of damage, such as a whip, which is, I believe, a slashing weapon, turn into a light club. Now you have a bludgeoning weapon.
Exactly. And that's also a great thing, too. Like, I can see the benefits of that. I'm not saying this rune is useless. This rune is really good. I just don't know about proficiency. I guess we could argue with, if you change it into a weapon you're not proficient with, then you kind of lose out a lot of bonuses to hit.
And Adam Generator says, I think that's the polytool from the Gods and Magic.
All right.
Which is another book from Paizo.
That's right. To have access to PRC slashing, but exactly. The rune is good. I'm not saying it's a bad rune. I was just curious if the proficiency carried over. Obviously, if you are a fighting class fighter, barbarian, champion, then you're going to be proficient with most shapes the weapon can take. But
Yeah.
if you choose like an exotic or ancestral weapon, and you don't have that proficiency, I guess that's really kind of a GM decision.
Hmm.
But I digress. Yeah, shifting, really fun, really cool. Another great thing to mention. We'll double back to this. It certain runes that require the weapon be a certain way do not apply when the form changes. So, for example, Vorpal. We'll tell you what Vorpal does later. I'm sure some of you kind of have a feeling what Vorpal does.
Yeah.
It goes snicker
Pretty
snack.
classic. It's a pretty classic property.
Yeah, but the Vorpal can only work on slashing weapons. So
Hmm.
if you have this shifting greatsword of Vorpal on it, which kudos, your end game.
No, I want a
It,
Warhammer, Vorpal Warhammer.
but it doesn't work that way. It has to be a slashing weapon.
Sharp edges on the hammer. The edges of the hammer.
But it does blunt damage. I'm sorry, rules raw, dude. We're raw booking it. Anyway, I think we've hit shifting enough. Let's go to shock.
Oh, that's me. I forgot it's my turn. All right. Shock is a level 8 plus rune. Usage is etched onto a weapon. Electric arcs crisscross the weapon, dealing an extra 1d6 electricity damage on a hit. On a critical hit, electricity arcs out to deal an equal amount of electric damage up to 2 other creatures of your choice within 10 feet of the target. Greater shock is electric damage dealt by this weapon ignores the target's electricity resistance and other creatures on a critical hit. So pretty much this is, I want to say, was it, oh god, Woodward has a spell, I think it's called Arc Electricity or something?
Electric arc. Yeah.
Electric Arc, yeah.
It reminds me. Has anyone here, show of hands in the chat, has anyone here played, obviously, some of you have played Baldur's Gate, good games, but have you guys played the Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance games?
Yep.
The top-down kind of Diablo clone, or even Diablo.
Yeah.
You guys know that there's some weapons that as you're beating people up, they just, like, the hammer itself or whatever shoots electric currents out from the people, and you can kill a bunch of people at once?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that's what that reminds me of.
This is another great crowd control rune.
Mm-hmm. Also, it's kind of giddy and exciting to like have this
Yeah.
person swing a hammer and then this AoE comes out. It's like, ooh, thank you. Awesome. Adam Generator has played Dark Alliance. Good to know I'm not the only one. You rule, Adam Generator. You get a free hero point for your table. Some GMs may disagree, but you get one. Speed. I guess that's me, right?
Yep. That's a lot
Speed.
of gold.
Starring Keanu Reeves and no, different thing. Speed the Rune. Rune 16. I'm such a dork. It's a rare rune, so be careful when you get this. Attacks with a speed weapon are supernaturally swift. While wielding a speed weapon, you gain the quickened condition, but you can use the additional action granted only to make a strike with the edged weapon. So, again, what's better than hitting once? Hitting 3 times. Hitting 4 times. Hitting 4 times is best.
I also want to point out you still do get the multiple attack penalty still.
Yeah. The speed does not get rid of the penalty. So if you have an agile finesse weapon, eventually if you swing all 4 times, you're going to rack up like a pretty impressive -8 penalty. But still.
But yeah, and also at that level, by the time you get a speed weapon, that penalty might not really mean anything at all.
That's a good point. The speed rune is a level 16 rune. If you're a level 16, 18 character, that -8, yeah, it's going to suck. But the bonuses are going to be like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, like I can see this once again. Just using my character as example, Rufa's whip being a whip of speed. That could be pretty sick.
Oh, God, yeah. All the strikes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also loving everyone laughing about the freak hero points. Yes, and I missed the Dark Alliance series too, Malice. Why? I mean, they made Divinity 1, 2, and 2.75 with Baldur's Gate 3. Just give us what we want.
Well,
give us Dark Alliance 3.
Well, really quick, PJ, the new
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate game is out, and I'm pretty sure they will make sequels to that, or at least expansions and everything for that. So
Yeah, no, I think it's gonna be great when they finish the game.
yeah. Anyway.
I'm very shady today. I'm sorry, everyone.
Anyway, let's move on to spell storing. Another favorite of mine. I got a lot of favorites here. This is a 13th level rune. It takes about 2,700 gold pieces and can be etched onto a melee weapon. A spell storing rune creates a reservoir of eldritch energy within the etched weapon. A spellcaster can spend 1 minute to cast a spell of 3rd level or lower into the weapon. The spell must have a casting of 2 actions or fewer, and must be able to target a creature other than the caster. The spell has no immediate effect, it is instead stored for later. When you wield a spell storing weapon, you immediately know the name and level of the stored spell. A spell storing weapon found as a treasure has a 50% chance of having a spell of the GM's choice stored on it. Let's see, one action command and refresh. Let's see, the effect is you unleash the store spell, which uses the target of the triggering attack as the target of the spell. This empties the spell from the weapon and allows a spell to be cast onto it again. If the spell requires a spell attack roll, the result of your attack roll with the weapon determines the degree of the success of the spell, and if the spell requires a saving throw, the DC is 30. Which has been pretty much, your weapon's basically a magus. Yeah?
Yeah,
Kind of.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's kind of like a magus. Obviously, it's a one and done. You can also, as one action, make the spell sleeve, so you can put a new spell in.
I just thought of a really cool idea. Like, this would definitely be a homebrew, but what if your weapon has a little cartridge thing, and you have to cast different spells onto the cartridge, so you can just slap a cartridge in, slap it. Okay, now it has it's a sword of fireball. Slap a different cartridge. Now it's a sword of lightning bolt.
It's like what's that animu? It's like well, for starters, it's like Gene Starwind's
yeah.
Starwind's magic
gun.
caster gun. Yeah, which is funny because like in Pathfinder 1, they made a magical gunslinger class that could shoot spells from their gun, like Gene Starwind.
Yeah.
I like the charge thing. I want to say I've seen that somewhere else, but I cannot remember.
I think
where.
that is Outlaw Star.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Like put like on a sword or something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Seeing some stuff here. So you can have your mage cast a spell into the weapon, and every fighter uses. That's correct, Miles. 1974. At least that's how I've seen it used in past editions, where you can walk up to someone and be like, "Hey, can you put this spell in the weapon?" I mean, you still expend the slot to put it in the weapon, but you store it there, I believe, until it's used.
Mm-hmm.
So you can put the fireball in there. Wizard can take a nap, can take a whole day's rest, and until you expend the spell inside, I believe it's. Let me confirm.
Oh man, I just thought how you could totally abuse this with that cartridge thing. Just like every end of the day when you need a rest, if the wizard has like free fireballs or something, just keep casting those on those cartridges, and then you have built up like a armament of fireball cartridges.
It'd be like a one and done use. I can see that because I know they have special ammunition for like bow and arrows and bullets when they make the gunslinger rules. I can see that being applied to like in the arrow, like you walk up like, hey, can you because they have spell storing arrows. You can be like, hey, can you put that spell in here?
Yeah,
thank you.
Honestly, that's a perfect thing to do right before you take a long rest. If you have any open spell slots, just do that on every spell storing item you have.
Oh, I'm looking at the chat talk about Divinity Original Sin 2, and I am loving the conversation about, like, because I made a joke that Baldur's Gate 3 isn't complete. And I'm not talking about the bugs or whatever, because that's fine. Games come out buggy sometimes. Mm-hmm. But from what I've heard and read, like, the story itself isn't even complete yet at Early Access. So look forward to that when it comes out, I guess. But they're talking about the Early Access Divinity Sin 2, or Divinity Original Sin 2, the Chestomancer, where you could just infinitely hurl 5,000-pound treasure chests at people, from what Reap Psyche says. Dude. And Adam Generators is like, yeah, and you can still do it. It was never patched. Oh, dude, my goodness.
That's the same thing in Fallout. You could actually you can launch furniture at people. There's a weapon where you just launch It's like a leaf blower or something. You just launch furniture at people.
Oh my God. Adam Jenner says also, can you spend a spell scroll to give it to the rune? I might be reading this wrong, Adam. I apologize, Adam Generator. Can you spend a scroll, give it to the rune? I have read somewhere in the scroll rules you can basically like transfer a spell on a scroll to an item or object. I believe the scroll then dies or vanishes, becomes useless, and I believe the spell is then stored in a spell storing item or an item that can hold a spell to whatever degree. But it's like I think it's still a one and done use. So yeah, all things.
Yep.
Moving right along. Thundering. Now we're really getting to that Thor shtick we mentioned earlier.
Are you thunderstruck?
Thunderstruck. Let's see. Scroll to give it to that rune. Oh, I think we're saying yes, Adam Generator. You can use the spell storing rune to take a spell scroll and store that spell scroll into that rune. Yes, you can. At least that's what I remember reading somewhere. Thundering. It's another flavor of damage, much like fire, shocking, ice, and Law and Order. Dung dung. This weapon lets out a peal of thunder when it hits, dealing an extra 1d6 sonic damage on a successful strike. On a critical hit, the target has to succeed a DC 24 Fortitude save or be deafened for 1 minute or 1 hour on a critical failure. For the greater thundering rune at level 15, the save is now 34. The deafness is permanent, and the sonic damage dealt by this weapon ignores sonic resistance. That's rough. That is just mean. Permanent deafness.
I could once again using Rufus' whip. That's pretty much the effect of that would be Rufus just cracking the whip really loud above his head.
Shit. Dude.
Why? Gave me tinnitus.
Yeah. Ma. Adam Jenner says, I can see some busted builds. Absolutely. I mean, I think that's what it's there for. Because, sometimes the really fun, juicy builds are the ones that work really well in tandem with very hyper niche things. I would love to see someone be like, scroll, weapon of storing, death. Like, those are always fun builds.
I'm seeing more like spell glue, slap.
I just love the idea of like hitting someone with a hammer and then it's all like they're glued everywhere. It's like,
what is it? Like in Warhammer, there's these characters who actually literally like paint like paper talismans onto their weapons and armor. That's what I'm envisioning.
Well, I don't know about 40K. I know very little about 40K, but Warhammer 40K. Wait, fantasy,
you just said 40K.
Fantasy.
40K.
Sorry, fantasy. I know a lot about Warhammer 40K. I don't know a lot about Warhammer Fantasy. There we go. I said it. But in Warhammer 40K, it's very, very common for people to put those holy talismans on their armor, on their weapons.
Exactly. That's what I'm envisioning.
Oh, that's such a good look. I can see that working. When I was LARPing, I had this big metal suit of armor, and it didn't work very well. But someone got a magnet. This is a great note for you cosplayers. They got a magnet on the backside. On the front side, they got this kind of styrofoam, and they painted it red to look like a wax seal with like the embossed and everything. And they put strips of fabric they hot glued there with like these really cool sayings and like virtues on them. And she'd walk around to a knight, stick it on their armor, and they have one of those seals.
PJ, slightly off topic. You know what I'm going to do? When I go out LARPing with you finally, I'm going to do something really mean. I'm going to get a bunch of these talismans that's with magnetized or, sticky backs to it or something, write Chinese characters on it, but much like Chinese tattoos that Westerners usually get, people think it's like something clever, but it's going to be something really stupid like, buy one, get one free, or, one order of mushu pork.
I love it. Yeah, I can see it now. Like all the people who don't know, it's like, do you see this like purity scroll? A Mandalin gave it to me. It means my purity is my strength. And then like literally anyone who reads Chinese goes, no, it says I wipe front to back.
Yes.
Wait,
I'm
what?
doing this.
No!
I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
Reap Psyche, I do watch text to speech for the Emperor. I love it. I also love some of the theories they posit about Magnus the Red. But that's a conversation for a different
And yes,
time.
Sydney, me and my coupons.
Yep. Absolutely. Let's see. I'm just catching up with the chat. I hoping everyone's okay. I see Reaped is a little stressed because of work. I feel that, man. My day job finally got a little better with Q4 kicking in. So, but we've completely derailed this train of thought once more.
Let's talk about unholy weapons.
Unholy Diver.
All right, this is a level 11 rune, 1,400 gold pieces, and has to be etched on a weapon without a holy rune. So, see, you got what if it's a? I'm trying to figure out a weapon that's been holied and unholied in the same time. Maybe a shifted weapon. Maybe that could be a shifted weapon.
Well, I think one of the cool things about runes is that the property of the rune is kind of given throughout the entirety of the entity, right? So it would really have to be something odd if it's going to possess both, because that then says that these are not the same item. You know what I mean?
Like I said, that'll be kind of cool if you have a holy weapon and an unholy weapon that has a shifting property. That'd be kind of cool. But anyway, the unholy rune instills fiendish power into the etched weapon. A weapon with this rune deals additional 1d6 evil damage when it hits a good target. If you are good, you are enfeebled too while carrying or wielding this weapon. It's a reaction command, once per day. You critically succeed on an attack roll against a good creature with this weapon. The effect, the weapon takes persistent bleed damage equal to 1d8 per weapon damage die of the etched weapon.
So if you have like an unholy sword or an unholy knife, you hit them, and then you deal 1d8 per weapon damage die. So if it's like a major striking rune plus 3, then they're bleeding 3d8.
Yeah.
An unholy backstabbing knife, like with a murder knot, the whole bit. A grievous unholy dagger with a murder knife given to a murder knot. It's a murder knife, really.
Yeah.
Given to a rogue. I see such wonderful things. Malice said two-bladed sword, potentially. A lot of the weapons still count as one item. But it is not too hard to state. As a GM, this weapon is designed from two separate entities or two separate blades or whatever you want to call it. So in theory, yeah, you could maybe do that as a GM discretion.
Yeah, and I just realized you could be true neutral and wield both of these weapons, a holy and an unholy weapon.
Well, you could wield them, yes. However, I don't believe both runes can exist on the same item. But yeah,
No. I'm saying you have one unholy weapon, one holy weapon, so like maybe a holy hatchet and an unholy hatchet.
Ooh, that I like. Actually, I like that. And that'd be really funny to be like, I am true neutral. Look at my yin and yang of death that I carry around. Adam Generator says a Schrodinger's weapon should be a shifting holy unholy weapon. If you look at it, it's a holy sword or an unholy maul. I love that. The whole idea is this weapon is both holy and unholy, and we don't know what it is until I smack you in the face with it.
Exactly. All right, PJ. Let's find out a little bit about Vorpal.
Yes, we mentioned this earlier. Vorpal, the Snicker Snack Snack Attack, Cracker Stack, Snack Pack. It doesn't say any of that. I'm just being goofy. It's a level 17 rune, so this is endgame stuff. Now, earlier when I mentioned shifting, about having some runes only apply to specific weapons, the Vorpal Blade can only work on a slashing melee weapon. Originally created as a means of slaying... Yep, I'm right. The original, as a means of slaying the legendary Jabberwock, Vorpal weapons prove equally effective against nearly any foe with a head, and that is important. Activate, reaction, envision, death, incapacitation effect. Thank you, Adam Generator, for putting the incapacitation rules in the chat. Trigger, you roll a Nat20 on a strike with this weapon, critically succeed, and deal slashing damage. The target must have a head. Effect, the target must succeed a DC 37 fortitude save or be decapitated. This kills any creature except ones that don't require a head to live. For creatures with multiple heads, this usually kills the creature only if you sever the last head. So, this weapon can be kind of cool. This weapon can also be kind of meh. Really depends on what you're fighting. And it really only depends on if you critically hit them and they fail the DC 37 Fortitude save. So, this, I feel like they've kind of run this through the nerf patch. And I can see why. Having an effect that can instantly kill something is always kind of rough. It's one thing if they're a low-level CR and you're just like, whatever, get it out of here. It's another thing if it's like an endgame boss that has a head because it needs a neck for all of its tilting back evil laughter. So the fact that you can walk up to a BBEG and on a 20 go, nope, you're done.
Yeah.
Kind of robs the players and the GM.
I want to say you got to be super careful with. And it's also one of those weapons that's honestly, it's an end game weapon. You're not going to give this out like level 10 or even level 10 or something.
Yeah, the rune itself is a 17 level rune, which means it's going to be probably the last thing you get for the weapon. Yeah. And you may even at that point just prefer more damage and more versatility as opposed to a very niche I win button.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm looking at all the chat. Penguin Witch Doctor. Awesome to see you, Penguin Witch Doctor. What about a weapon that is holy, unholy, lawful, and chaotic? You need to roll every attack to see which you hit with. I love that you said that, Penguin Witch Doctor, because I've been secretly brewing in my head a special rune that may play well into. And we may not build it at the table, but as a GM, I will be building the rune later. Rip Psyche says, hilarious thing about Baldur's Gate again, Vorpal effects worked on demi-liches because they did have a head. In fact, they are a head, only a head, that had no body, but the rules don't say anything about a body.
True.
Really?
I mean, cut the head in half.
But anything can do that. I have so many feelings.
But anyway, hello, Omega Virtual Reality. I'm wondering if I actually know you in real life.
I'm wondering.
Thank you for those hearts.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Omega Virtual Reality. I know a guy whose name is Omega. I'm wondering if it's them.
Is that you?
Is that you? Anyway, so the last rune for weapons in the core rulebook, and before I'll jump into the advanced player's guide a bit because there's only like 3 in there. Do you want to take wounding?
Yeah, definitely. I just realized something. I'm a big fan of low cost runes. Because this is another favorite property of mine, wounding. Level 7 rune, 340 gold pieces, etched on a piercing or slashing melee weapon. Weapons with wounding runes are said to thirst for blood. When you hit a creature with wounding weapon, you deal an additional 1d6 persistent bleed damage. On a critical hit, it instead deals 1d12 persistent bleed damage. Love my bleed damage. Persistent damage. Love my persistent damage.
Because if it bleeds, we can kill it.
Yeah.
I do love that a lot. Now I'm trying to figure out from all these, because I've gotten such terrifically terrible ideas, is how to stack all these to make the perfect rogue knife. You know, to like stack on a whole bunch of things so you hit them once and they just bleeding everywhere.
Reading through all these runes, I got some ideas. I want to talk to you later, PJ. I got ideas.
I love ideas. And we can definitely do that. I mean, hey, stick around. After we're done talking about runes, we're going to create some magical runes of our own. Yes, Chad, I have been reading everything you said. I've written down the rune of cuddles. I have theories about the runes of cuddles.
No, it should be 2 runes. It's like a lesser rune and greater rune. So it should be rune of little spoon and rune of big spoon.
No, because see, then I feel like we're saying one's better than the other. And they're both equally great.
True.
Take it from someone who is both a big and little spoon. They are both great. So now, if you do have the Advanced Player's Handbook, there are a few runes for weapons in there. And I'm just going to jump into that because that's the other material I have. And then after that, we can discuss armor and the like. So there's a Fearsome rune on page 260 of the Advanced Player's Handbook. It's a rune, level 5+. It can be etched into any weapon. When you critically hit with this weapon, the target becomes frightened 1. And then the greater levels, it can become Frightened 2. Fun, good, really good roleplay there. You could have a cursed weapon with a fearsome rune in it, and this thing's just a monster to behold. A lot of fun there. I'm just seeing all the chat now. Rune of greater spooning. we will talk about that later. Who knows? Okay, let's see here. I should have done a better job of. Oh, here we go. The Ready Rune, item 6+, can be etched onto armor. So we're going to be cutting the line a bit here, but why not? They're all there. The Ready Rune draws component pieces of a suit of armor toward one another. Think like when Iron Man, like in Iron Man 1, when the pieces fly to him, or Iron Man 3, when the pieces fly to him and they assemble on his body. Basically that. You don light armor with this rune as a 3-action activity, or a medium or heavy armor will don this armor in 1 minute with this rune. The Greater Ready Rune, you can don light armor with a Greater Ready Rune as a single action, and everything else 3 actions to put on. So it's great if it's like you're taking off your armor a lot and you need to put it back on.
I'm just imagining now it's like a jumpsuit, so you just zip up, zip off.
I like that. Yeah, or it's like, what is it, Bruce Almighty, where he just goes like that, and
Yeah.
everything just peels off of him. So it's good. I don't know, though. I always feel kind of weird about being faster to don armor. I always kind of feel like we, for a very good reason, shove that into the hand-waving list, you know? But I guess if you're playing with a GM who's really particular about this is a good safety net. All right. I'm trying to remember all the other rune items I saw here. There we go. Winged. A winged rune is a 13+. It can be etched into armor, another armor rune. The rune is a swirling glyph on the front of the armor. A large pair of transparent ephemeral wings floats out from the back of the armor. 2 actions to command interact. Frequency once per hour. You trace the rune on the front of the breastplate to the armor's ephemeral wings, then grow tangible, granting you a fly speed of 25 feet or your land speed, whichever is slower. This effect lasts for 5 minutes or until you dismiss it. Once the effect ends, the wings disappear completely, reappearing on the ephemeral form 1 hour later. The Greater Winged Rune at 19th level. Once activated, the wings remain tangible indefinitely. You cannot dismiss the activation if you choose. I'm sorry, you can. My apologies. You can dismiss the activation if you choose, and you don't have to wait an hour to activate the rune again. So, fly all the time. And those are some of the runes from this book. I think they were mostly all armor runes, except for the fearsome.
Speaking
But
of
I think that,
armor runes, should we
Yes,
talk about some
brain.
armor runes?
I was just about to segue. Yes, in
Yeah,
fact, if you have the armor runes,
we're compatible. You know, we're on the same wavelength. You know.
yeah,
Yeah, you know. What am I thinking right now, PJ?
Sandwiches are tasty.
Actually, yeah,
They are good.
they're pretty good. Nice, you know. Oh, I love a nice beef tongue sandwich, a little Russian dressing, some sauerkraut and rye. Mwah.
Oh yeah, let me tell you something. My partner makes this amazing breakfast sandwich. We use mayonnaise to coat the bread. We grill the bread in the pan. We make eggs and bacon and cheese, and we put a little cracked pepper on that bad boy. Slap it all together. It's very pedestrian, but somehow maybe it's the love makes it like that much better.
I recommend also switching to Kewpie Pie mayo. The Japanese mayo that is so good.
Ooh, I'll have to do that. Also, I love reading the chats, all the amazing rune suggestions. The rune of Bane Andrew, it's like the Bane rune, but it only works against a specific merchant named Andrew because he ripped off the wizard who made the rune. Adam Generator, you get a hero point. I don't care what your GM says. You look that GM in the eye and you say, PJ said so, Bane Andrew. And if they're not on board, then clearly they're not the GM for you. I'm just saying.
Anyway, should I start with armor runes?
Dear God, yes. Please help me focus.
All right, let's kick off with, this is another favorite property of mine. Anti-Magic. It's a level 15 rune. It's a 6,500 gold piece rune that can be etched onto armor. This intricate rune displaces spell energy, granting you a +1 status bonus to saving throws against magical effects. The reaction is a command once per day. The trigger is a spell targets you or includes you in its area. The armor attempts to counteract the triggering spell with the effect of a 7th level dispel magic spell and a counteract modifier at plus 26. Craft requirements is supply 1 casting of dispel magic. I like me
Ugh.
anti-magic.
Ugh. I love it as a player. I hate it as a GM. I hate it, especially in some games where like the really big perks of creating a boss for the enemies to fight is the special custom spell list not the custom spell list, but the spell list that they have that they could draw upon. A lot of their threat is their spells and a few other like mechanics here and there. So to just be, it's the armor of Nope, and I had a sorcerer in a different game that used sorcerer points to just constantly spam counterspell, and that hurt me.
This one is you can only be done once per day, so it's a get out of jail free card. So I think that's pretty fair.
That's okay. I'll give that credit. It's pretty fair that it's a once a day thing. It's really good.
Oh, I just really quickly thought of on a light club, a thundering light club with anti-magic. So when you strike it down, it does the thundering effect and also creates a brief anti-magic circle.
That would be dope, although the anti-magic is mostly in the armor, not the weapon. So I don't know if that would work, but who knows?
That would be pretty awesome.
Penguin Witch Doctor. Is there a Slippy Rune? We might get to that and find out. Why did I get creepy with that?
A little bit.
Yeah. So next up, Energy Resistant. It's a rune level 8+. The symbols convey protective forces from the elemental planes. You gain resistance 5 to acid, cold, electricity, or fire. The crafter chooses the damage type when creating the rune. Multiple energy-resistant runes can be etched onto a suit of armor. Rather than using only the highest level effect, each must provide resistance to a different damage type. For instance, a +2 acid resistance greater fire resistant breastplate, that's a lot to say, would give you an acid resistance 5 and a fire resistant 10. So the acid resistance is regular acid resistance, that's 5. The greater fire resistance is 10. And that's how it levels up. So the original Rune 8 is 5. The greater energy resistance is level 12, and it's a 10 of a certain type. So that lets you kind of stack different resistances up to some creative effect.
Yeah. The next one is Ethereal. It's a level 17 rune, 13,500 gold pieces, and it can be etched onto an armor. Let's see, the Ethereal rune replicates armor on the ethereal plane. It's a 1-action command. Once per day, you gain the effects of an ethereal jaunt spell. This doesn't require concentration and lasts for 10 minutes or until you choose to return to the material plane as a free action. The crafting requirements is supply a casting of 9th level ethereal jaunt. So, a little bit, you're kind of basically a displacer beast.
Yeah, you kind of are. And that's a heavy price. It requires a 9th level spell and the item level 17. So really consider your options with that. Fortification. When in doubt, get stout. That's horrible. No one clipped that.
It is. It was pretty bad. You sit in the
bad.
corner now.
Ugh, I do this all the time. I say dumb things. All right, fortification. Rune level 12+. Etched onto your medium or heavy armor. Note, this does not apply to light armor. A fortification rune wards against the most deadly attacks. Each time you're critically hit while wearing the etched armor, attempt a DC 17 flat check. That's kind of rough. On a success, it becomes a normal hit. This property thickens the armor, increasing the bulk by 1 and the strength required to reduce its penalties by 2. The greater fortification, the flat check, is only a DC 14 flat instead of a DC 17. I don't know. I feel like they took something that was really great in the earlier editions, and while it's still nice, they really they made it harder to use.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure honestly in our group nobody unless Muriel would probably find use for this.
Morel, maybe.
Yeah, Muriel. Yeah.
Morel. For the secret to Morel's name, say Marvel and then get rid of the V.
There you go.
Why don't you hit Glamour? This one's gonna be kind of fun.
All right. This is honestly, this is something that a social character would probably love. Glamored Rune. It's a level 5 rune, 140 gold pieces, etched onto armor. The armor can be disguised with a mere thought. It's one action Envision. You change the shape and appearance of the armor to appear as ordinary or fine clothing of your imagining. The armor's statistics do not change. Only a creature that is benefiting from true seeing or similar effect can attempt to disbelieve the illusion with a DC of 25. Kind of want to get that on Rufa's armor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, read my mind. I was like, this would be great.
Yeah,
for
this
you.
honestly, this is honestly basically, this is a disguise. This is basically disguise.
Mm-hmm. It's also really good. If you look in the advanced player's guide, they have an archetype. It was a whole class in first edition.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it didn't go very well as a whole class, so they made it an archetype. It's called the Vigilante, and you're basically Batman. So what's cool is you can now sneak into places and completely cover up the fact that you're wearing armor, thus throwing off any suspicion people would have that you're there to murder someone. So I like it. Next up, Invisibility. Rune 8 plus. Etched onto light armor. Light seems to partially penetrate this armor. One action command, frequency once per day effect. Whispering the command word, you become invisible for 1 minute, gaining the effect of a second level invisibility spell. The greater invisibility at level 10, you can activate the armor up to 3 times per day, supply 1 casting of invisibility for craft requirements. So this is really cool for like that kind of chameleon armor magical effect, which is really good. My God, that's amazing for rogues.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Invisibility and glamour to be a fun combination.
Yeah. All right.
Oh,
next
man.
one, what?
No, continue, please. By all means,
The next one is Shadow. It's a rune plus 5. Armor with this rune becomes a hazy black. You gain a +1 bonus to stealth checks while wearing this armor. And the greater shadow is the item bonus is +2, and major shadow, the item bonus is +3. Another great bonus for rogue type characters.
Yeah, I feel like now obviously invisibility can be great for any class.
Yeah.
But I feel like invisibility and shadow was very much intended for rogues, especially considering how limited rogues are with the kind of armor they can wear. I mean, you could put them in plate mail, but it's going to give them way too many penalties to really be useful.
Yeah, I kind of want to say shadowed is the stuff that you get at low levels, and then you upgrade to invisibility.
Yeah, I don't know, it's very difficult because shadow prevents a static bonus, a passive bonus all the time, right?
Yeah.
But in this, I can see if you really want to get broken, give them the major shadow and greater invisibility runes, so long as you have the space for it with the build of the item, if you can. And then you have a +3 all the time, and your oh crap button is at invisibility.
Yeah. PJ, why don't you take the last one?
Yes, this is a shout out to Penguin Witch Doctor who asked if Slick is a rune. And I'm sure that people there have already mentioned the Slick rune in chat. But yes, the Slick rune is absolutely a rune. It's a 3+ level rune. The property makes armor slippery as though it were coated in a thin film of oil. You get a +1 item bonus to acrobatic checks to escape and squeeze. And it goes Slick, greater, and of course major Slick. And the bonus goes from a 1 to a 2 to a 3, respectively, which can be really good if you just do not want to get in the front line and someone grabs you and now you're in trouble.
Yeah, and really quickly, see, Adam Jenner says, don't underestimate the power of ruffian rogues using medium armor. Strength rogues are really good. Yeah, I've been looking at that build, actually.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Medium armor, strength rogues, all solid build. I'm not saying that's not great. However, throwing a strength rogue in plate mail may be kind of problematic because they lose the speed, they get the penalties on certain checks. But no, strength rogues, especially because, and this is the weird thing about this game, is that they get so much more damage out of strength than they do.
Yeah, a
Dexterity.
strength rogue sneak attack could be really awesome.
Oh my god, yeah.
Really beastly.
And all the
Yeah.
bonus damages, like the bleed and
Yeah.
everything. Huh.
Like a ruffian is basically you're the bouncer. That's your role. You're the bouncer.
Yeah, you're the bouncer. Now, we covered all of the weapon and armor runes in the core rulebook. All right, so that was a pretty extensive look into magical items slash runes that can be used for both weapons and armor. Keep a lookout for more books, maybe even Secret of Magic. More runes are a-coming. But before we get too far into that, please, Mr. Michael Powell, tell them who you are and where they can find you on that sweet, sweet internet.
Well, I am Michael Powell, and you can find me all over the internet on my social media handle, which is Mr. Kapow. That's MrKapao. And that's Instagram, Twitch, and Twitter. Or you can also follow me on my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Michael Powell Does Stuff, because I do a lot of stuff. Like my new YouTube channel, which is Fantastic Tales of Adventure. And on Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Toyzilla Network, I will be hosting Toyzilla Live, which is a toy news and nostalgia show. That should be a lot of fun. And what about you, PJ?
Oh, thank you for asking. My name is PJ McGaw. You can find me all over the internet at pj.mcgaw. When I'm not here at the table with Mr. Michael Powell making awesome stuff with you in the chat and talking about these great books, I'm here Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Edge of Legend. As we just got back from our Halloween show, we have some amazing things kicking off. The Green War is starting to turn, and a new paladin is being found, and we'll see what the players do. Also, brief side note, CCRIT, or Secret, is taking a small hiatus as we kind of plan the next couple of steps, and everyone gets a bit of a break in before the holiday season. So, I look forward to telling you guys more stuff about that and some other things, some possible charity work, and we'll see you here, same Nat time, same Nat channel, at the table. Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.